we're now armed with the world's intelligence. I had a friend that had a lump in their breast, so went to get a mammogram and ultrasound of it. A doctor checked and it was fine, seemingly benign. But when I put the image in ChatGPT, it said that further follow-up was needed and probably resection. So I think there is this interesting difference in that patients are so much more knowledgeable. We're now armed with the world's intelligence, whereas doctors are only armed in some degree with their intelligence, unless they're using LLMs. So I think this power differential is what's causing the change.
Hello, Shelby. Welcome to the Augmented Life.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. I love it when I see people making falsifiable predictions, putting themselves out there. I think this makes your own thinking process more rigorous. And you have published, I think you're the principal author of one of my favorite works of futurism right now, A Biohacker Future. What led you to doing that brave act?
Yeah, it's a good question. And thanks again for having me on this podcast. I guess the context is through the place at which I work. I work at Compound, which is a thesis-driven, research-centric investment firm. We invest across AI, robotics, and crypto in and of themselves. And I work on those things applied to bio and healthcare. And one of my colleagues 2 years ago wrote a manifesto about a crypto future and did a year-by-year prediction of what would happen in the crypto market, how geopolitical trends, politicians, greater utility apps in crypto would lead to all of these interesting future dynamics. And so Smack, who's our crypto person on the team, crypto investor, he's really the inspiration for A Biohacker Future. And we'd known we wanted to write something similar in biology for some time, but it took us a while to circulate around biohacking in particular. But biohacking ended up being the right choice because it's moving a lot faster than what people think, and it affects individuals and can affect individuals faster than therapeutics, for example.
Right. I am. I think it's fair to say I'm spiritually a cyberpunk. I started being a hacker when I was a teenager, and in the 90s there was a lot of work in cryptography as enablement technology for individual empowerment, and we were all just very, very excited and optimistic about the social implications of people being able to express themselves more securely. And that's the thread by which I have become a biohacker. I guess I share the theory that some of this tech that we're currently labeling, under that biohacker umbrella is actually about radical individual empowerment and is going to shape the future of society in some really cool ways just by making people literally more powerful and more in control of their bodies.
Yeah, and that's another reason why we've done this deep dive in crypto, because ideologically, biohacking is because ideologically it's really similar to crypto.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That individual empowerment theme. Absolutely. And sort of a self-sovereignty thing too. Like, I'm going to mod my body how I want. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Yeah. And you see that with uptake of biohacking in crypto communities and or just online communities in general. There's what seem like niche things like injecting yourself with non-approved peptides. It turns out actually like millions of people do that and talk about it online. So I think there is like internet native to crypto native to like biohacking. Like there's all like kind of a Venn diagram of people that have similar ideologies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fun to see that social crossover. There's something that I'm just curious about, just as kind of getting into the weeds of the act of futurism and making concrete predictions, has to do with like uh, independent and independent variables and the necessary linearity of storytelling. Um, in your work, which is just open to everyone because you've published it at a biohackerfuture.com. You make predictions on a 4-year time scale, or I guess a 5-year time scale, right? Because I should count inclusive. 2025 to 2029, which sort of invites the reader to read it linearly. Um, to what extent did did you write it linearly? I guess what I mean is you're making predictions, and you could do that with dependent variables, right? So the 2029 predictions require the 2027 predictions to be true. But on the other hand, like reality doesn't actually unfold linearly, right? Like we do that, we impose that on reality. So, um, so some things just take longer to bake. So as you were actually crafting this, to what degree do you feel like the end result features a bunch of individual variables that work independently versus kind of build on top of each other?
That's a good question. And something we talk about a lot at Compound is that bio is specifically not recursive in the same way AI is right now. Whereas, like, if you get an open source model advancement, the whole field is able to use that and rising tides lift all ships. But if you cure spinal muscular atrophy, that doesn't necessarily help you cure cancer at all. um, so I guess how I more tried to write it because some things aren't interconnected was through the lens of I guess data collection, through the lens of self-driven therapies, and then through the lens of um, adjacent technologies like engineering plants to be more like nutritionally fortifying.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yes.
So
Understood.
yeah, so I had different timelines and thought about all of those linearly, um, and actually wrote the piece year by year from 2025 to 2029. Instead of, yeah, I tried initially to futurecast, but then I was like, actually, I can't see the wood for the trees here. Like, I need to like take this one step at a time, and going like writing year by year was an effective way to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, having laid out having laid out this path, what are you personally most excited about seeing unfold?
So many things. I don't even know where to
I know,
begin.
right?
I think the
Right.
one of the biggest one of the place where enhancement is really valuable, and we were talking about this before the show, is in neuromodulation. Um, there's so much going on right now in brain recording technology, and EEG has come a very long way. Um, but the next step of that is to have neuromodulation and being able to control your brain state, not by your actions, but by like external stimuli.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah,
I'm really excited about this as well. I was speaking with a um I was speaking with a great meditation teacher who is very excited about ultrasonic brain stimulation, and I was surprised. Um, so I really wanted to into it with him, and the reason why he was so enthusiastic about this is that he was telling me that it gives his students in the lab this sense of their destination. She's like, we just stimulate a certain kind of experience, so then we can say, all right, this is where your meditation practice should go, right? Like this experience you're having right now that I've kind of externally stimulated, you're going to learn to internally navigate to. And he just thought that it was like pedagogically useful, that you could give noobs a taste of the destination, and then they could navigate there faster, which I thought was really fascinating. I myself am interested in a different kind of the same sort of velocity improvement. That teacher, by the way, is Shinzen Young, who um, has has decades of experience across a wide number of meditation um, traditions. Uh, I have this narrower uh, desire to just get any kind of feedback that is like I'm doing it right. That like the trouble with meditation is it's happening entirely in your head, and it's difficult to open your head to a teacher. It's very difficult for the teacher to therefore see what's going on. Uh, and this is not an intractable problem. Like obviously, meditation has been successfully taught for a few thousand years, which is great that some of those traditions have remained alive as a result. But it just seems like it's way more time consuming than it needs to be. And if there was some way of going, yeah, that stay there, we could all go faster.
Yeah, yeah, and with a closed loop system, you could do that because your teacher could be recording brain reading signals, and then that brain writing tech could be directly applied to you. So, yeah, I think be it could be like the next renaissance of the world when we're able to scale mastery through,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Right.
through neuromodulation.
One of the greatest parts of The Matrix is that scene. I know Kung Fu. I
Mhm.
want to make that a reality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It really Yeah, it really does expand the mind to think about. But yeah, what about you? What biohacking are you most interested to do on yourself?
The I've got a bunch of sort of training experiments. Um, for instance, I guess this will be the first time that I publicly admit this. I um I've been thinking about whether this should go into the App Store or not, if anyone else would care. I have some bad spaghetti code running on my Apple Watch um, to give me a private little distinctive buzz. Um, I've been tuning this a little. Um, First, it was every 6 minutes because I was thinking 1/10 of an hour. Six is actually sort of an awkward time unit, so now it's five. And and the idea is to see if I can actually train my brain to have a very accurate intuition about time having passed, which may be impossible, but I'm just like super curious. So the idea is to give me this sort of always on monotonic reinforcement. 5 minutes have passed. 5 minutes have passed. 5 minutes have passed. Do I get a sense for it? So eventually I can turn the app off and I have a like a supernatural sense of 5 minutes having passed. Um, so I have several things like that where the idea is to sort of take advantage of maybe some latent neuroplasticity and just do weird training. Um, Another idea you can consider almost the inverse, which is to take extra effort to label my interior experience while over collecting. Like I'm wearing two wearables right now. I got my watch on and my Aura ring on. I do runs where I'm wearing a CGM. I try other interesting forms of instrumentation like this is trying to give me a sense of my um, respiration, my metabolism.
Is that Lumen?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, which I like. I've been enjoying. I think that it's essentially subclinical in precision, but by being so much more accessible, you reduce the friction of sampling, and so the benefit of the longitudinal data collection is overwhelmingly greater than the fact that you have to deal with a little bit of imprecision, and so I happen to
Mhm.
love
Yeah.
things like this. So Lumen, I'm a fan. Um, Right. So the idea is, can I over collect on a whole bunch of biomarkers while essentially labeling things that are in my head, such as I feel sad, I feel frustrated, such that I actually can train a model on the biomarkers to be predictive, or to otherwise make it possible to measure like when I'm sad, um, without the labeling. Um, so I've been doing a lot of that. One of my favorite experiments that's related to this, that's also just a mental thing, is getting hard data on who or what is surfaced by my default mode network. So how do you do this? Well, when is my default mode network activating? It's when I'm doing the dishes, in the shower, in things like that. And almost by definition, in these times when you have high default mode network activation, you're not going to remember to write things down. That's not how this brain circuitry works. So, what I did instead is essentially stochastic sampling. So, um, thanks to my phone, and this kind of thing will be accessible to any curious Fulcra user. As a matter of fact, um, you can just set yourself up to be randomly sampled with a simple to ask question like, "Who are you just thinking about?" Um, and then if that interface learns your common answers, you're trying to reduce the friction of answering the stochastic samples. Then over time, I I've I have hard data on on like the patterns of rumination, which is wild. Right? So as you can see, a lot of my mods are almost more like, how do I instrument what's otherwise like extremely difficult to instrument?
It reminds me of the functionality that you have when you're tracking your health. I use a CGM as well, and just the fact that I'm able to see glucose go up after a meal and want to see that, it, it makes me want to track it as well. And the Lingo CGM by Abbott actually has an amazing user interface where you can add diet really easily, add exercise, but yeah, I think there's really something to just having more access to what your body's doing, and that has a compounding effect for wanting to add to that corpus of knowledge.
Yes, yeah. So I'm really pleased with Abbott's device, and then Dexcom with the Stello, trying to reduce the friction to just getting one of these devices. Um, and then yeah, like my big obsession is taking those individual data streams from something like that or something like this, and then putting it in the context of the rest of the data that your life produces, so you can figure out the hidden causal relationships. I think there's just a lot to be learned from longitudinal data of one. There are ways of being more rigorous with n equals one experiments, and
Mhm,
I'm enjoying being on the edge of that.
mhm. Yeah, it's
Well,
inspiring.
I guess I have a theory about venture capital that I will describe in the following way, or a theory about how to be successful in venture, which is, you don't want to be entirely contrarian. What you want to be is consensus in front of everyone, right? Like the if you make, if your bets are too contrarian, then they're going to fail, right? What you want to do is be and also like right on too long of a time scale is basically the same as wrong. So so you want to be right, and you want to be ahead of everyone, but you do actually want everyone to catch up, right? Um, and so there must have been a genesis to take us back before the um the predictions that you made, that led Compound as a firm to say, okay, this is blowing up faster than expected. This is something where we can get out ahead and turn into a thesis, because a thesis driven firm is only going to have so many theses, right? So what was the genesis of turning this one into a major focus?
It was things we were hearing about seed health making a lot of money. K18 hairs acquisition by Unilever was a massive um, proof point in the field. Maybe I should explain these companies. Seed Health is a probiotic that you take in pill format. Um, it helps supposed to help general gut health. K18 hair is a peptide that you put on your hair to bring the keratin structure back together, so it makes your hair more shiny. And yeah, so these were like science-driven consumer products that we saw doing really well. Um, at the same time, we'd invested in a um, brain-computer interface company using EEG to record the brain. They're called Occam, and they had showed us through their amazing execution that um, hardware, like building hardware for consumers, it is difficult, but it can happen faster than what you expect. And the technical progress for them was really astounding. So all of those things coming together of like millions of people are willing to buy these science driven products. We're having more data come online than ever before. And as we looked at Reddit, like biohacker subreddits, even like spoke with rare disease parents. That's another thesis we have is like rare disease parents are actually very much like biohackers in terms of this self sovereignty, taking health into their own hands, being more interventionist. Um, yeah, so the confluence of that is a movement actually, and the movement of biohacking. But yeah, we were following a few different threads, and yeah, it just so happened that thankfully the term biohacking was already invented, and um, we could catch all of these disparate tailwinds under one umbrella
Right.
term.
Mhm. I also have been inspired by rare disease parents. Our term at Fulcra for this um, is biohacker of necessity. They did not set out in this direction, but are facing something undiagnosed, underdiagnosed, and just need to take data gathering in their own hands, which leads to um, you know, breakthroughs in needs for instrumentation and then interpretation. This is the experience of my co-founder Diana. She became a biohacker of necessity when her body just started behaving in weird ways, and uh, the just as we were talking about instrumenting what's in your brain, it's actually symptom tracking is very, very hard. Um, and and memories are very imprecise. So she was in this place that I'll describe as like UX designer heal thyself, working on just how do I make it easy to transfer what is happening to any expert at all. Um, and yeah, it's actually a wide open space, and clearly, um, the there's some dramatic increase in enthusiasm and agency. Like my friend who went ahead with the follistatin therapy, had to fly to another country to get it done, right? Like which you would ordinarily think of as like a major economic barrier to running any sort of business, but um, that's what everyone experimenting with this is doing. So that just tells you that the demand is actually pretty extraordinary.
I think in a post Luigi world and how the public responded to that, it really showed that we are all dissatisfied with the healthcare that we're getting. And that's really the lightning rod that crosses political affiliations. It crosses like even income levels to a large degree, like gender, race. So yeah, I think this is really a lightning rod for all of us.
Yeah, wow, that just blew my mind. You're so right. And there's so much room to advance the state of the art. Like it's not to I guess to a certain extent, um, some of that frustration is laid at the feet of people like, why don't you just do a better job? But there's also just fundamental limits to our understanding of bodies. I think sometimes we tacitly confuse the refined science of, I don't know, metallurgy with the science of physiology, which I think actually has decades of work to catch up to the same level of understanding we can sometimes bring to bear on problems of chemistry and physics.
Yeah, complex systems, super hard to model. I mean, Evo 2, the foundation model by Arc Institute that was able to predict some um, perturbations from mammalian cells is a massive unlock. But we're made of trillions of cells, so it's a good step. But many more have to come in order to be able to make like fully digital twins of us.
Yeah, and, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about this until you put it that way, but actually the math of complex adaptive systems is super fresh, right? Like, Santa Fe Institute started in our lifetimes, right? Like, this even at the level of mathematics, like, actually requires quite a few breakthroughs, as opposed to a bunch of problems in mechanics that are, you know, fully solvable with math that we already have, right? The chaos theory and related kind of ergodic systems theory is kind of brand new, um and there are many breakthroughs I think ahead of us. Speaking of the complexity of this kind of thing, and then how it brings um, complexity to diagnosis, um, I guess part and parcel with biohacking is self-experimentation. What do, are you seeing emergent social norms about like how do you how do you try something on yourself and actually like figure out if it's working or if it's just placebo effect or figure out if one separate what you're trying from like the confounders.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting with like why now for biohacking as well is because we can put any recordings from your CGM, any the pictures of health scans, we can put those into ChatGPT and it can give us the world's, intelligence about it. So kind of a separate example of I had a friend that had a lump in their breast, so went to get a mammogram and ultrasound of it, and yeah, a doctor checked and it was fine, seemingly benign. But when I put it in ChatGPT, it actually said that there was greater. When I put the image in ChatGPT, it said that further follow up was needed and probably resection. um, so I think there is this interesting difference in that patients are so much more knowledgeable. We're now armed with the world's intelligence, whereas doctors are only armed in some degree with their intelligence, unless they're using LLMs. So I think this power differential is what's causing the change. But yeah, I would just put like anything. I can't believe I haven't done this yet, but yeah, just any of my recordings, any of anyone's recordings, I think put them in ChatGPT and see what it has to say.
What I like to do, that like I have a little recipe for this now, which is I'll take whatever my artifacts are, related to the case at hand, with a prompt that sets up a scene of multiple doctors working on a differential diagnosis together with, based on the following facts. So instead of trying to get a one shot like answer, like what is the conclusion I should draw, it's actually better to get the model to, create some characters that will disagree with each other and but surface the the other things that it could be. Instead of trying to get one right answer, you kind of want the 4 candidates and then a weighted final answer. So I do this as like a script.
That's smart. And I mean, I think that's the tried and true way to increase model performance is you have like a panel of experts and yeah, have them debate each other. So, yeah, how do you do that with your personal health data?
Oh, the I've got a few different tactics. Um, I I made this experiment. So of course now I have a whole bunch of my own data in just my Fulcry data store, and so you can make it available to something like ChatGPT with function calling. So I made a personal GPT, and it can make function calls to my Fulcry data store to pull in data to answer questions. Um, and this is fun, but requires the model to also, you know, pick the right functions, write the valid Python, etc. Um, and and sometimes I don't want to wait, right? like sometimes you want to actually like do the data extraction yourself to then just jump straight to, the Dr. House style differential diagnosis. Um, and because I'm a super curious person and sometimes like really, really systematic as a tester since I'm a hacker, I've also tried this in multiple formats. Of course, all of my early experimentation was in text. Um, but weird things happen when you essentially share the same data. Um, but but maybe more lazily, right? You just screenshot, something that requires the multimodal capabilities of the model. Um, Sometimes I also get better reasoning, which I think is really fascinating. That like one, I feel very confident that GPT 4.0, the Omni model that is natively multimodal, literally reasons better than GPT 4. Like how it's navigating the latent space to actually somehow produce more reasoned results, I think is mysterious. I've simply observed the pattern. So now, yeah, I will share photos if that's relevant. Just selfies, or medical imaging, and it does a pretty good job. The where this is maybe a super long answer, but I'll go there. Um, the sharing long time series of my wearables data. Um, has been weaker. And my theory is that a whole bunch of medical imaging or even random pictures of wounds are already in distribution of the training set of these models. Whereas, the New England Journal of Medicine, every peer-reviewed paper is presenting its data in this very particular style that is appropriate for peer-reviewed publications and is not like the output you get off of an Aura ring. So the model just has to sort of work harder because it's dealing with out of distribution data, and so it gets a little bit weaker. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I guess what's next for you? What do you wish the models did that they don't already?
Oh man, what a good question. Um, oh, I have such a long wish list. Let me think. Um, the the oh well, okay. Let's think this through together. The Now there is more capital investment in biotech that is being made available to consumers, right? Like which is super awesome, but creates this new problem of curation, right? There's like too many things to try. Even if I want, now there's competition in spaces that where there were zero solutions. Like I want data about my microbiome, right? I can choose now from multiple startups. Um, so that leads to consumers being overwhelmed, and one of two things will happen. Like partly because of that overwhelm, there's this new form of concierge practice emerging. That's like we're going to take you on a health journey. You know, we keep track of all the best stuff, and so we'll walk you through it. instead of you having to sort through it. And, that makes sense. But on the other hand, we're getting an increasingly powerful, like just personal AI servant. So which wins, right? So is there a tremendous opportunity for these next gen clinical practices, primarily because they're doing this curation? Or does the intelligence go so far to the edge that we don't need those middle layers, and we all become direct consumers of this imaging and that supplement and this gene editing? I I don't know. Have you thought through that, the uneven development of the landscape in this way?
Not in that sense. How I've more framed it is like for high interventions, you probably will want to go to a clinic. And if a clinic does, somewhat unique peptide combinations or different brain imaging, then that is a moat for them. But in terms of like controlling your patient journey, what is the best process for doing that? Yeah, I think it is personal LLMs. And then from, you know, next gen 4.0 in ingesting all of your data, it will tell you which tests you need to do um, and then send you to the like clinics that actually do the procedures.
Right? The so th- that is personally what I'm hoping for, um, and here's how I'll explain it. The Right now, I'm increasingly using um, models plus deep research as like a let's think things through sort of partner, and it's very nice. Um, the so we can see that getting better. The jump from GPT 4.0 to 4.5 is looking great. Grok 3 has really impressed me. Grok 3 also, like, switching into a thinking model just with a single button push, absolutely great. So I'm really optimistic about, let's call it, stepwise improvements from here. But the wisest people in my life who have made the biggest impact on me, the biggest positive impact, did not do it by answering my questions. They did it instead by directing my attention to what I wasn't seeing for myself. And that's where I want us to get to. And I actually think there's a big gulf between now and getting to that place, because it's very, very hard to get a model to capable of seeing you, to like bridge that gap, so that your hyper intelligent personal assistant agent can actually surface something, actually start the conversation like, Michael, you know, we need to talk. I think it's going to require more than just incremental model improvement. Uh, so that's my fantasy destination, though I have no idea how long it'll take.
That's a great point. It's yeah, like context on someone and how they are in the world is kind of what you need in order to have those like deeper insights. Um, yeah, something we talk about a lot is AI therapy and different manifestations of that. And I have some friends that are, you know, they type their daily interactions into 4.0 and try and understand um, what things they could be doing better or how they fit in the world. And but I think yeah, I feel like that doesn't fully capture it because it's like just from your view, you need like external context.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are some unique benefits. I'm really bullish on AI therapy, and so I've made a special effort to get in touch with the founders of killer AI therapy bots, and one of the ways in which you can have a better experience with an AI than you ever could with a person is the delete button. Like it turns out that you can just feel a lot safer, like sharing something, knowing you can have a fully informed conversation and then boop, make that go into the ether, right? There's no delete button on your therapist. So So I think there's necessarily this different path everyone has to take to like trust building that you can just skip. You can just skip with a high empathy AI. So you and and you can chat at 4 a.m. right? I think there are some unique strengths here that in some ways are they're compensatory strengths that are actually so large that we do not need to get to my wise old man on the mountain level of observability in order to find value.
Definitely. And I feel like for most people, not most people, some people still have stigma around a human therapist, not because they have to divulge secrets, but because of how it's portrayed. But with AI therapy, no one has to know. Like the only transaction on your computer is like your subscription to Claude every month. So um yeah, so I think there is something interesting about like entirely removing stigma and yeah, and like you said, de- like decreasing the activation energy or the barrier to entry for these emotional conversations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm really broadly optimistic about this. I think the net effect of the kind of technologies that we're describing is going to be um, people seeing themselves in new ways, really incorporating um, external intelligence in a way that actually is actionable and makes us a little more fulfilled in life.
Yeah, that's a very optimistic worldview.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, yeah, that's nice.
My experience working in cybersecurity led me very counterintuitively to this optimism. I um I think the simple truth of the matter is that most people are good. Um, and if this wasn't true, we'd all be dead. Um, the the reasons for defense are that it's literally easier and faster to destroy than to create. So a relatively small number of people playing destruction games kind of punch above their weight in terms of social impact. If it was truly a 50-50 split, the bad guys would have won because it literally is less energy to destroy. So that's the good news. This means that you can kind of broadly count on people, and so if you broadly empower people, that's actually going to have a net good effect because we're starting from a good set of priors. So yeah. So you might think this would have turned me into a cynic, but it's actually had the opposite effect.
Yeah, that's nice. I just saw a paper a couple of days ago about how um, pessimism is actually a sign of net lower intelligence, and it actually people that are more optimistic and are more open minded tend to have a higher higher level of intelligence. I didn't. It's kind of a radical claim, so I don't know how much to weight to put by it, but
It comports with my worldview in the following way: cynical explanations broadly are reductive. So, um, so it's an earlier landing place. So, like if you're confused about the world, you as we are all the time, we're going around being confused, seeing inputs. We're like, I don't wonder what's up with that, and so you're making up little stories of causality. Cynical explanations literally require less thought because they have an earlier stopping point. So I do think that cynics end up having more superficial explanations of causality. That's like my off the cuff explanation for this phenomenon. So I'm in that camp. I acknowledge that it's a radical proposition, but I believe it actually is true, or at least it comports with the priors that are already in my head. Well, this has been an absolutely lovely, wide ranging conversation. Um, Once again, if you're listening and curious about Shelby's future predictions about biohacking, That was published at A Biohacker Future. But Shelby, if people want to learn more about you, where do they find you?
I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. I go by Dr. Shelby there. And my yeah, and at Shelby Newsad is my Twitter handle. But yeah, really love the conversation today, Michael, and thank you so much for having me. And really great to meet like minds about biohacking and biooptimism as well, because I feel like yeah, like we were saying, it's so easy to be cynical. So it's really nice to meet um, yeah, kindred spirits,
That's right.
thinking
Yes.
about positive futures of
Right.
biotech.
Us optimists need to stick together. That's right. All right. Yes. This was absolutely lovely. Thank you.